The high horn of Eastwatch by the sea sounded at dawn, a raw, braying note that pealed across pack ice and black water, and set every gull screaming off the battlements. Frost-crusted ravens burst from their cages in a frenzied cloud, wings thrumming the pale sky. On the eastern parapets the watchmen froze, not from the bite of the wind, nor from the usual dread that plagued half-starved sentries in midwinter, but from the sudden knowledge that the signaller had blown the horn thrice. Thrice had not been heard in 300 years. Sir Yoramont Pike, the garrison's lean first ranger, felt his heart thud so loudly that it drowned the horn's echo as it rolled west along the wall. He hurled aside the blanket he had wrapped around his shoulders and sprinted, boot heels crunching snow, until the ice steps became a blur beneath him. Brothers on other towers were already shouting questions. He shouted no answers in return. There were none. At the final landing he leapt down 3 steps at once and skidded into the signal room. The tiny stone chamber trembled with lamplight and cold. A lanky boy knelt by the horn, still clutching the leather strap. His face was ashen. "Tell me," Pike demanded, though he feared he already knew. The boy's voice cracked. "Dead things, sir. Beyond the ice floes. I saw a lord of bones with eyes like the heart of winter. And behind him, taller shadows. They march on the sea itself." Pike turned to the slit window cut in the eastern ice. Out there dawn crawled sluggishly, dying on the horizon like a fire smothered in ash. Where a scatter of pack ice should have floated, a glistening sheet had formed, fresh, smooth, unnatural, and over it moved pale silhouettes, ranks and ranks of them, silent and relentless. He counted 100. Then 2, then lost all number. "Run," he told the horn boy, scarcely hearing his own voice. "Warn the commander. Rouse every man. Light every brazier we own." The boy fled. Pike lingered only a heartbeat longer, staring through the slit. The figures were closer already. They moved with horrific grace, sliding where men would march, floating almost, as if the very air were their element. And in front, was it possible? The air glimmered with frost-blue runes that drifted upward like sparks, marking the unseen passage of still greater powers. He had no words for that sight, so he turned away, snatched his sword from the wall, and followed the horn boy down the steps. Far to the west, at Castle Black, a pair of stable boys dragged open the heavy gates for a courier whose pony floundered through the snowdrifts. The rider, Maester Willard, copper-bearded and shaking, collapsed the moment his feet hit the flagstones, thrusting a sealed raven's tube into the charge of the gate guard. "For the Lord Commander," he wheezed. "Eastwatch calls." Inside the commander's solar, Lord Commander Harlan Stark of the Night's Watch read the missive in silence. The fire beside him crackled, spitting sap. Around the circular table, his sworn officers, Steward Captain Mudge, First Builder Orell, and Scribe Master Ryle, waited, exchanging anxious glances. Stark's gray eyes, weathered like stone in moonlight, surveyed them one by one before he spoke. "3 blasts of the horn," he said in a flat, disbelieving whisper. The dead ride again. Orell, rotund and perpetually red-cheeked, shifted uncomfortably. "Old tales only, my lord. The long night ended 8,000 years ago." "So," said the queens from south of the neck, Stark murmured. "While we freeze and bleed up here to keep them snug in their beds, does Eastwatch lie?" None answered. "Send riders," he ordered, voice sharpening. "1 to Mole's Town for every healer and leech. 1 to Winterfell for blades and men. 1 to Queen's Crown for lantern oil and pitch. And loose every raven. We call our vows now or never." "Daway." Maester Ryle, thin as a wraith himself, dabbed ink to parchment at once. Mudge hurried away to the yard, barking orders, his breath billowing in the cold air. Orell lingered, worry creasing his brow. "If the tales are true," he said, "neither steel nor fire yawns wide enough to stop them." Stark's gaze returned to the flames. A log fell, and sparks ascended the chimney, swirling into darkness. "Then the wall will be tested," he said. "But the Night's Watch will not run. Not while Harlan Stark draws breath." The raven that left Castle Black winged south upon a wind that tasted of iron. It beat across white woods and frozen lakes until, at dusk, it reached Winterfell's rookery. There, old Maester Lurik untied the scroll with stiff fingers, squinting at the black wax seal. The dire wolf of House Stark, quartered with the obsidian shield of the Watch. He carried the message through the covered walkways where icy curtains wept from the beams, seeking Lord Brannon Stark, Warden of the North. Brannon stood within the Godswood, beneath the weirwood's bloody leaves, sword in hand as he practiced silent forms. Snow dusted his mail. His breath steamed. Lurik bowed. "My lord, the Night's Watch calls." Brannon ceased his exercise. Sheathing steel. Red. The maester's thin voice quavered as he spoke the commander's words aloud. When he finished, Brannon answered at once. Steady, though the news was dire. "Wake Ser Ulrich. Summon the bannermen. We march before dawn." "But, my lord, winter's grip will tighten more if the wall falls." Brannon laid a gauntleted hand upon the weirwood's face. Its red sap wept slowly from the gouges of old carvings. The heart of winter beats beyond those stones. "If centuries could not break the watch, I will not be the Stark who hesitated." Lurik bowed again. "I shall prepare fast horses." Brannon watched snow gather where his practice had trodden a circle in the white. He felt the land listening through the roots underfoot. The old gods, the nameless spirits. "Pray to them," he said softly. "All of them." Beyond Eastwatch the ice sheet thickened by sorcery. Great cracks sang like cold bells as it fused beneath the trod of deathless armies. Ser Yoramund Pike, atop the eastern rampart now bristling with archers and tarslingers, saw the enemy by torchlight as true night descended. Pale, sallow warriors in armor of rime, their eyes luminescent indigo. They came without haste, certain as the tide. Wind howled through rent sails of a derelict carrack locked in the ice offshore. Its broken mast groaned like an old woman. "Flaming arrows," Pike ordered. Line after line of bowmen loosed. Comets of fire arced out, trailing sparks. Where they struck they hissed and guttered. But the foe advanced unburned. A few undead sailors collapsed where pitch-soaked shafts penetrated mold-softened flesh, yet the blue-eyed lieutenants strode on, unaffected. From the base of the wall, whose ice face loomed 700 feet skyward, a thunderous chill swept upward. Frost blossomed in tendrils across the stone steps. Torches went dark, devoured by cold. A hammering rose as something vast, unseen, beat against the wall. Pike's throat tightened. They mean to bring it down. The wall had stood for 8,000 years. But now, before his very eyes, spidery cracks slithered through the translucent ice like veins. With each rise of that awful pounding, more felt in the bones than heard. Another fissure burst outward, glowing with phosphorescent blue. Men shouted. An archer toppled, arrow half loosed, as the parapet beneath him split and dropped into shadow. A section of eastern battlements sheared away entirely, thundering down to smash upon the ice plain, where whites clustered like ants. Snow exploded into clouds. Pike seized a shaky torch and plunged it into a barrel of wildfire kept against siege. The liquid flared green. "Dare!" he roared. "Cast the fire." Casks were heaved over the edge. They shattered below in blossoms of jade flame, incinerating dozens of corpses at once. A cheer rose, but died as quickly. 10 whites burned, but 100 replaced them. And behind those, in the swirling snows, advanced beings far taller, exoskeletal, crowned with icy spikes. Their eyes were twin stars of cruel intelligence. Pike's mind reeled. Legends named them others, white walkers, cold shadows, who rode pale steeds of mist. Yet tales had never captured the horror of their presence. They were winter given will. A drumbeat like cracking glaciers sounded once more. With a deafening shriek, a rift opened across the wall's base, from eastmost sea to the first tower's shadow, and sheets of ice the size of castles broke free and collapsed outward. A shockwave of crystalline shards raced across the frostplain, shattering wights and men alike. Pike staggered as the rampart quaked. He felt the walls sway. He felt history sway. Then, with a roar that drowned all thought, the eastern third of the ancient wall shivered and began to fall. It crashed across leagues, ice avalanching upon itself, folding like rotten cloth. Where it struck the frozen sea, it shattered in luminous explosions. Half of Eastwatch vanished into an abyss of pulverized frost. The other half buckled inward, turrets crumpling. Sir Yoramont Pike refused to be flung. He clung to a crenel, knuckles bleeding, while earth and sky flipped. When stillness returned, he lay on his side against glassy ruin. The tower beside him was gone. Only a torn edge of ice remained. The coast, stripped of its shield, gaped open to the dark-haunted north. And marching through that gap, inexorable and silent, came the army of winter. Pike forced himself to stand. Blood trickled from his ear. He raised his sword, pointless steel, dull as clay before such foes. Yet he raised it all the same, as a watch-brother must. "Ring the bells," he rasped at the survivors scrambling over rubble. "Hold them till dawn, or till we die." The bells of Eastwatch rang thrice more, a steady toll of doom that echoed westward in the night. At Castle Black, the bells arrived as a tremor in the wall itself. Lord Commander Harlan Stark felt it beneath his boots while arraying men on the courtyard. The ice creaked, a groan of breaking worlds. The wind blew east to west, heavy with a scent like old tombs. Snow drifted unnatural, twisting under moonlight. "A piece of the wall broke," whispered a young recruit named Tern. His voice trembled. "I think I heard it go." Stark gripped the boy's shoulder. "Then we shorten the line. Builders, reinforce every postern. Rangers, ride to Molestown. Bring non-combatants here. Send word south. The wall has fallen in part." "What of Eastwatch, Lord Commander?" Stark's eyes strayed to that dim horizon where countless watchfires once glimmered. Tonight only darkness reigned. "Pray for them," he said. He mounted his destrier, Blackhorn, and wheeled toward the gate. "First Ranger, with me." 50 riders thundered into the night, hooves crunching over a mantle of fresh snowfall. They bore torches that flickered madly as the wind shifted, and behind them Castle Black's great fire pits blazed to life. Across the north, signal towers lit in turn. Queen's Crown, the Last Hearth, the Flint's Watch, the Karstark Beacon. A chain of crimson flares swept toward Winterfell. In the black halls of House Stark, Lord Brannon saw his ramparts redden. He knew then that the worst had happened. The North had not rallied its full strength in centuries, but grim necessity made swift work now. From the White Knife to the Rills, every holdfast mustered men. Lords answered ancient oaths, with hearts made small by fear, yet hardened by pride. The White Harbor Fleet prepared to sail east and bear fire barrels along the coast. At Barrowton, Lady Shara Dustin gathered her riders, clad in iron crow's wings, and swore to die before rotted bones walked her green barrows. In Deepwood Motte, House Glover felled half the forest for spear shafts. Even crannogmen of the Neck emerged from their bogs, gray-skinned and silent, bearing jars of noxious oils that burned atop water. But the march of winter was swift. While mortal men sharpened steel and fortified walls, the White Walkers spread a chill that extinguished hearths before flames kissed the logs. Rivers turned to black mirrors. Wolves howled day-long under fading suns. The living found tracks of hoofless mounts pressed into ice that melted nothing beneath them. The dead caught and raised by these riders moved without fatigue. Lords and peasants, wildlings and rangers alike, now bound to an alien purpose. Still, pockets of resistance flickered. At Shadow Tower, brothers held 13 days behind shuttered gates, raining obsidian-tipped bolts from scorpions. Dragonglass proved true. Every shard that pierced a pale warrior shattered him into icy fragments. But obsidian was rare, mined only as vein jewels on Dragonstone, or scavenged among old Valyrian ruins. Shadow Tower spent its meager supply in a single week. When the last black quarrel flew, Commander Ansel Yarwick ordered a valiant charge down the switchback stairs. Torches in both hands, singing the ancient oath. None returned. Their pyres burned for 2 nights, then froze, blue candles that refused to die. Smoke rose no longer as ash, but as white crystals that glittered like stars. Winterfell's courtyard erupted with horns when Lord Brandon Stark rode from the gatehouse, steel-gray armor catching the dawn's pallid light. Around him, 5,000 Northmen formed ranks, maces and axes, longbows, spears tipped in raw iron. A murmur ran through them as a company of knights' watch riders appeared from the King's Road. Harlan Stark at the fore, his black cloak tattered with frost. The 2 Starks met before the old well. Brennan dismounted, clasped forearms with his cousin. "The wall stands shattered," Harlan said without preamble. "Eastwatch is dust." Brannon's jaw clenched. "How many?" "Scarcely any survived." Sir Jormund Pike escaped with 40 men. They flee along the coast, harried night and day. Harlan's eyes hardened. "We cannot wait on southern kings. The wall was ours to keep, and we failed. The debt is ours." Brennan surveyed the ring of armed men, noting that many wore boiled leather dappled with fresh snow. None showed fear now, though fear surely lived in every chest. "Then, we fight. We fight as Brandon the Builder fought, as Torhen turned kneelers with the threat of Northmen's steel. And if we fail, the dead will march through Winterfell's broken gates to every hearth in the 7 kingdoms." Nendersau. A hush fell upon them, so deep that one heard the drip of melting rime from a mailed elbow. Brannon drew his sword, Ice Render, its Valyrian steel shimmering a smoky purple in the gray morning. "Northmen," he called, voice rolling off the towers. "We face no mortal foe, no petty lordling's pride, but death itself. Stand with me, and we carve memory enough that bards will fear to sing it. Stand with me, and we gift our children dawns yet unborn. Stand, and there is no north the dead can claim." Men? Spears thudded on shields. A roar answered him, part courage, part terror, all resolve. So began the muster at Winterfell, last rally of living north against oncoming night. On the 5th day after Eastwatch's fall, the vanguard of the dead spilled into the last river valley. They moved under a sun dimmed to a pewter disk, snow scudding sideways like ash over a field of broken tombstones. Ahead lay Last Hearth, seat of House Umber, whose stout timber walls and earthen ramparts had never been stormed. Inside, Lord Theomar Umber, broad-shouldered, with a red beard bristling like a thatch roof, oversaw frantic construction. Women boiled oil in vast cauldrons. Boys affixed drake's teeth to arrows. The last of the livestock had been slaughtered to feed the garrison. Their carcasses hung like pale pennants in the courtyards, awaiting the smokehouse. Snow kicked up under galloping hooves as a lone rider burst through the south gate. He slid from the saddle, staggering. "The dead," he gasped. "A league behind me. They fill the valley like thunderclouds." Cries erupted. Theomar roared them down with a voice that shook lintels. "Positions. Archers to the ramparts, pikes at the breach. Maesters, light the braziers. When they come, burn them. No heroes, no cowards, we stand." He hefted a massive greataxe. Let them learn what an Umber vow means. As dusk bled into nascent night, the first ranks of wights appeared. Skeletal, frayed with remnants of flesh, clothed in rags of an age long lost. They rushed the ditch in silence, clawing over each other, heedless of arrows. Burning oil cascaded, charring limbs to cinders. Yet still they came. For each fallen 10, 20 climbed. Flaming logs launched by catapults smashed trenches, but pale lieutenants strode through the conflagration untouched. Their icy swords sundered shields, armor, flesh. A white walker's blade brushed Lord Theomar's greataxe, and frost bloomed across the steel, brittle as sugar glass. The axe shattered. The frost leapt to Theomar's gloves, raced up his arms. He howled, dropping to his knees, and the cold took him. Still, the living fought. But Last Hearth's walls, meant for raiders and footpads, could not resist the strength of winter. When the great gate splintered, A pallid host flooded the courtyard like avalanche. Lady Ellen Umber rallied the household guard to ring the weeping tree at the keep's heart, but the tree's red leaves were already whitening. Veins of sap turned ice within. The living died beneath its branches, staining the snow pink until even blood froze. By dawn, Last Hearth stood silent, and over its keep fluttered no banner, only the drifting snow. Word of the fall reached Winterfell with survivors who had ridden through the dark, spurring mounts to collapse. Queen beyond the wall, Elia of the Free Folk, daughter of giant slayer Harwin, reigned beside Lord Brannon at the head of her rough-hide retinue. My scouts counted 10,000 dead men and 100 white ones, she said, voice low, dread underlying the calm. The wall's sorcery slowed them once. Now, nothing slows them. Brannon stared north past the fields, his breath a plume of steam. Umberdead joined their ranks now. I saw Theomar's face among them. Elia's eyes burned with grief and fury. They made council in the great hall. Night's Watch strategists, northern lords, and wildling chieftains leaned over maps lit by sputtering tallow. Dragon-glass daggers from Skagos were portioned out sparingly. Blacksmiths labored to forge new arrowheads from the shards, but each chip lost was irreplaceable. Fire buys us time, Harlan said, pointing to the line of forts south of the Gift. These strongholds, Long Barrow, Greenwood, Greywood, ignite the forests around them when the dead approach. Smoke blinds the enemy. Flame consumes whites. But the walkers themselves stride through, unharmed. We need dragonglass in their hearts. Maester Lurik coughed. There is rumor of ancient caches buried in the shadow of Dragonstone. But that isle lies 1,000 leagues south. Time we shall not have, Brannon said. Better we lure them to the bogs where Cranagman's torches turn peat to hellfire. The council argued until the candles guttered. Outside, a wolf howled. Then another. Soon the night rang with their mournful chorus, as if all the godswood were lamenting. Brannon dismissed the gathering at last. He lingered alone beneath the banners of proud direwolves, listening to their cloth rippling in the draught. The tapestries depicted victories long past, hard-fought, but mortal victories. The foe depicted today had never been defeated by mere men. He whispered a quiet prayer to unnamed gods. Then he summoned his squire. Ready the war horns, he said. Tomorrow we ride north as far as the last river. If the dead cross there, the north falls in half. And if they cross elsewhere, my lord, then may the songs at least remember we tried. The dead did not rest. 2 nights later, under a moon like a blind eye staring upon a dying world, they crossed the White Knife instead. An icy bridge formed over running water where no mortal cold held sway. Whites passed single file at first, then in swarms. White walkers glided above the current on invisible frost. Spearheads glimmering blue. Koi. At dawn, Pineholt village burned as a last revenge of its inhabitants. Smoke rose in a black column that bent eastward, while charred timbers collapsed. Cold ashes fell with snowflakes, indistinguishable. Brannon's outriders found the ruin hours too late. Among the embers, they discovered the blackened skull of a mother, still clasping an infant, swaddled in half-melted wool. Even the fiercest men wept. That night, beneath Brannon's command tent, the war council tasted despair as bitter as wormwood. Provisions ran low. Their march lagged behind an enemy that never slept. Yet retreat meant surrendering Winterfell itself. Hold them here, decreed Harlan, stabbing a gauntleted finger upon the map, at a narrow vale known as the Bight of Snow. The cliffs funnel them. A single dragonglass blade can reach a walker's heart. And if it fails, Elia murmured, our dead rise as theirs before sunrise. Silence greeted her truth. Snow pattered softly on canvas above them. Brannon broke that silence. Then I stand in the fore, to show there is still breath in the north. If House Stark's blood cannot freeze the tide, none can. The next day the armies dug trenches across the Bight of Snow. Tar pits were opened and filled with faggots. Wildfire casks from White Harbor were rolled into pits and wired to tripstakes. Ravens, dipped in pitch, and set ablaze, were released at evening to circle overhead, their fiery wings outshining the stars. When the last light faded, frost mists advanced. The dead arrived, phalanx after phalanx marching without cadence. Behind them moved the white walkers, luminous within the murk. Behind the walkers, immense shadows lumbered. Once mammoths of the frozen wasteland, now skeletal titans crusted with permafrost, tusks sheathed in ice so sharp they glinted like mirrors. Brennan's heart hammered as he raised Icerender in the twilight. Across the line, torches guttered and flared, casting trembling silhouettes on the snow. Somewhere a boy began to sing the song of the last hero. Others joined. Their voices wavered but did not break. Then the front line of whites hit the stakes. Spears thrust. Pitch ignited. The night came alive with fire and screams, and the hiss of snow turning to steam. Through it marched the walkers, stepping over burning corpses unhurried, each movement elegant and deadly. Lord Brennan spurred forward with his Hearthguard. The clash was nightmare. Blade met blade. Icerender's Valyrian edge bit into frost steel, sending shards of blue ice spraying like gemstones. Harlan's black cloak whirled as he thrust a dragonglass spearhead into a walker's breast. The beam shattered. Snow flurrying outward like exploded glass. But there were so many. A mammoth white crashed through the trenches, trampling men as if straw dot high. Wildfire casks detonated, bathing its skull in green. Still, it lumbered, flaming. Brennan vaulted from his horse, hacking at its tendon with Valyrian steel until the beast collapsed. It howled a sound like glaciers splitting. Around him brave northerners fell. For every walker slain, another advanced. Icerender grew slick in his grip. His arm ached. Snow stung his eyes. Suddenly, silence. A hush swept the vale, as if time itself paused. The mists parted to reveal a figure taller than any man, clad in armor of swirling frost, a crown of pale horns gracing its brow. Its eyes were twin bolts of direwolf blue. The Night King. Brennan felt cold that sank beyond flesh into soul. He stepped forward regardless. Sword raised. The Night King regarded him, tilted its head, then extended a hand of taloned ice. Wind gusted. Snow spiraled. Brennan swung Icerender in a two-handed arc. The Night King parried with his palm. Steel met flesh, yet rang as if against iron. Frost leapt along the blade, creeping toward hilt. Brennan wrenched free, but Icerender's brilliance dulled, choking under layers of rime. He lunged again. Faster. Harder. Each time the Night King halted the blow with an effortless touch, frost spreading further. Brennan's breath came ragged. His sword, once pride of Winterfell, glittered now with crystalline veins. Desperate. Brennan feinted left, reaching for the dragonglass dagger at his belt. The Night King's gaze flickered. It swept its arm outward. A gust of winter smashed Brennan from his feet. He landed yards away, dazed. The dagger skittered across ice. The Night King strode forward. Around them, the battle still raged. But for Brennan, all else faded. The Monarch of Cold reached down, closing fingers of ice around Brennan's throat. The chill seared like white flame. He tried to gasp, but no breath entered his lungs. Through blurred vision, he saw Harlan charge, dragonglass spear raised. A swipe from the Night King's free hand sent 4 spearmen flying. Harlan stumbled but thrust with all his might. The spear point grazed the Night King's side. Blue light erupted, and the spear shattered into obsidian dust. Brennan's vision darkened. From the corner of his eye he glimpsed Elia leaping onto the Night King's back, driving a shard toward its crown. Frost erupted, hurling her aside. And still, the hand tightened. Icerender cracked entirely, falling in pieces. In that moment Brennan understood despair in full. Yet even so, stubborn flame flickered within. With the last of his strength he spat a wordless curse and hurled his broken hilt at those icy eyes. It clanged harmlessly off the Night King's cheek, but the distraction loosened the grip. Enough. Harlan seized Brannon's fallen dagger, its dragonglass still intact, and plunged it between the Night King's shoulder blades. A sound like shattering bells rent the air. Light exploded. The Night King arched, a crown of ice fracturing upon his brow. For an instant, he and Harlan were silhouettes within a sphere of azure fire. Then the light imploded, and both figures vanished in a spray of snow. Silence again. Then screams as whites nearby collapsed, disintegrating into lifeless bone. White walkers froze where they stood, limbs crystallizing, cracking. The army of the dead faltered, but it did not die. From the rear lines, another crowned figure advanced, hoarfrost cloak billowing. Then another. The Night King was many perhaps, an idea, a mantle, a doom reborn each time it fell. Brannon coughed blood, dragging himself upright. Harlan was gone. Sacrificed in a blaze of victory hollow as despair. And still, the dead marched. Retreat. Ilias' voice rang out. South to the Wolfswood Ridge. Horn blasts echoed. One long, two short, a signal of tactical withdrawal. Men broke ranks, grabbing fallen friends, fleeing over smoking trenches. Torches dropped. Ash swirled with snow. Brannon staggered after them, vision tunneling, pain lancing every breath. Behind him, a new Night King raised arms skyward. Clouds spiraled as if drawn by unseen strings. Lightning in colors foreign to mortal sight flickered among them. Wind howled. Dead limbs stirred back to mockery of life. The living ran. Through bitter dawn, survivors limped into Winterfell. Gates closed on bodies half frozen, horses spent. Maesters rushed among the bedraggled host, staunching wounds with wine gone to slush. Brannon was borne on a litter. Flesh frost burned along the neck. He muttered names in fever, most of them already dead. The castle's battlements crowded with peasants and refugees. Children pressed between slats to glimpse their once fearless lords return broken. A hush more dreadful than screams fell over every face. In the great hall, Brannon's council assembled again. Fewer seats now, but heavier hearts. Ilias' arm hung in a sling made from a direwolf banner. Lord Manderly's beard was singed and rimed with frost in the same breath. And Maester Luric's aged hands shook so violently ink splattered every dispatch. No one spoke of victory, only of delay. "We must call the south," Luric urged. "King Harren sits enthroned in Harrenhal, proud behind black walls. He must march. If every realm stands together, let us ride even now," Ilias said. "But ravens grow weary, wind kills them, and southern kings weigh promises like coin. The dead count coin in corpses." Brannon's voice emerged raspy. "Winterfell stands, for now." "Eh?" said Sir Wylis Glover, clenching a mailed fist. "Make each tower a pyre. The walkers cannot climb flame." "Nah. But they will freeze our wells," Maester Luric warned. "And starve us out." Brannon's tired eyes flicked to the map, lingering on a sigil drawn long ago. "Dragons upon 3 heads. There are other powers," he murmured. "If any dragon eggs yet lie in Valyria's ruin, now is the hour to gamble all." Silence again. Then Ilia laughed. A harsh bark. "Cross half the world for myths. Better we forge every Southron steel into dragonglass blades." "And when the dragonglass runs dry?" Brannon asked. Ilia had no answer. Night descended. Over Winterfell's walls torches multiplied, a girdle of trembling light against hungry dark. Snow began to fall once more, thicker than before, swirling downward like the silent preface of a great and terrible storm. In the crypts, fleas stirred from warmth of fresh bodies laid to rest. Within the Godswood, the weirwood's red leaves fluttered though no wind blew, as if whispering messages none could hear. Somewhere far off, a horn sounded in the night. Thrice, faint, final. Brennan heard it in his dreams, and when he woke before dawn, frost rimed the inside of his shuttered window, though fires blazed within. He rose and dressed wordlessly. Outside, Winterfell's courtyards lay blanketed in pristine snow. No boots marred the surface. No horse stirred in the stables. Then he saw the first dead man stand atop the outer parapet, pale eyes shining like twin full moons. And beyond him, beyond the walls, the snow moved, not by wind, but by the shuffling of hosts innumerable, encircling the castle like a tightening noose. The wall had fallen. Last hearth had burned. The bite of snow had bled them dry. And still, the night kept coming. Brannon Stark drew a ragged breath that steamed before him. He lifted his father's helm and set it upon his brow. He drew forged a new ice render, patched, scarred, yet still Valyrian steel. And he descended to the gates, where Northmen lined in silence, torches in trembling hands. The White Walkers approached, ice winds preceding them, the new Night King at their midst. Behind him marched an unending tide of death, weapons of frost, hearts of winter. And upon Winterfell's ramparts, the last hope of men prepared to answer. The snow fell thicker, until world and sky were the same pale shroud. Then, as the first wight struck the gate with an axe rimmed in cold flame, the horns of Winterfell sang. They sang of ending. They sang of defiance. They sang as though every breath left in every living chest must be poured into that sound, lest the sound of beating hearts be silenced forever. The battle for dawn had come at last. Ka. Space between breaths was frost and memory. Hours after the White Walkers first ringed Winterfell, the snow had thickened to a whirling veil, each flake glittering with faint blue fire that stole warmth from the very skin it kissed. Torches cracked, their flames bent sideways by an uncanny wind that whistled like a bone flute along the battlements. Yet the living clung to those walls, eyes raw, faces lacquered in ice, every heartbeat another oath to stand one moment longer. Inside the second curtain, Brannon Stark paced the rampart walk. His neck still burned where the Night King's grip had scarred him, but the pain steadied him, knotted his thoughts into iron. Across the courtyard, barley straw drifted past the kennel door and caught on a corpse cart. Mute reminder that every morsel of fodder squandered on wind was a soldier unfed on the morrow. He paused to tuck the spill beneath his cloak and shoved it into the feed bin as he passed. Such were a commander's duties now, to fight death in 1,000 tiny moments, lest one great void swallow them whole. He descended the stairs to the inner yard just as Hoster Glover emerged with a squad of blacksmiths. The Lord's once proud emerald surcoat was singed to dull soot, but his gaze held sharpened fervor. In the ruddy glow of a forge wagon he showed Brannon the night's harvest, a bushel of slivers chipped from the ruins of Ice Render. "I will not sleep while Valyrian steel lies idle," Glover vowed. "We have forged them into arrowheads, 79 true and straight. They'll fly at dawn." Brannon clasped his forearm. 79 may break a tide. "If well aimed," Glover agreed. "Pray the gods guide their flight." "Pray the gods wake them," Brannon muttered, and released him to his work. Dawn crawled pale and grudging above a world of hoarfrost statues. Dead men arrayed beyond the moat stood frozen mid-stride, snow-capping brows and shoulders, yet their eyes remained alive, cold lanterns gleaming through frost. In their ranks knelt a giant wight, spined with broken shafts. The beast's chest rose and fell, inhaling winter itself. No breath steamed. Maester Lurik climbed the southeast tower to read the sky. He found Elia of the Free Folk there already, her slinged arm resting on a merlin. She watched the horizon where the King's Road vanished under drifts now as tall as men. "Look how they wait," she said, voice furred with sleeplessness. "They could rush the gate thrice over, yet they watch." "Waiting to learn our measure," Lurik ventured. Elia shook her head. "Or listening to a deeper command. They are not mindless beasts. They calculate." Lurik pulled his robe tighter, parchment crackling in the sleeve. Maps of stores, casualty ledgers. If calculation guides them, they know our plight. Grain for 3 weeks. Small clothes for 1. Torches for maybe 5 nights. They will starve us of hope first. 9. Then we starve them of silence. Elia lifted a horn slung at her belt. "Rally every man to sing at dusk. Make such clamor the dead must answer." "And should they? Then arrows fall," she said simply. Lurik felt the tremor of that prospect ripple through him, but he nodded and set about scribes' errands. Words and songs, they were weapons too. By high sun, though the sun was a wan disk smothered by clouds, Brannon gathered his captains beneath the stone cloister of the first yard. Frost crackled underfoot. The breath of 30 commanders rose in solemn plumes. Upon an upturned shield he traced the concentric rings of Winterfell's defenses with a dagger point. "Siege is certain," he began, "but siege alone will not fell them. Every hour we wait their numbers swell. Every man they kill may rise inside these walls. We must bleed them outside the gate, reduce their walkers until Dawnfire can finish the rest." Sir Willis Glover leaned in. "We lost half our dragonglass spears at the bite. Arrowheads remain, and a handful of daggers. How do we strike the white ones when they stand behind the whites?" "We lure them close," Brannon answered, and pointed to the moat. "We open the causeway at dusk, give the dead a single plank to swarm. Then we break the plank beneath their vanguard with pitch and flame. While they flurry, our hidden archers on the inner roof loose the Valyrian points at the walkers come to command." Sir Shara Dustin frowned. "Open the gate? Leave one path alone? They'll flood through. Then?" "No. They will," Brannon conceded. "But into bottlenecks shaped by butcher steaks and burning oil. Better 50 whites inside under our torches than 5,000 overrunning walls in darkness." Lady Manderley, scarred and unbent, grunted approval. "Let my spearmen guard the kennels. Dogs fear the dead less than men. If the corpses break through, hounds will hamstring them." Brannon sketched new lines. Interception, arcs, fallback trenches behind gatehouse, 2 paroid. He assigned each captain a quadrant. Last he turned to Jormund Pike, sword arm bound but eyes fierce. "Eastwatch men know the walker's stride. You will guide the roof archers." Pike bowed stiffly. "Aye, my lord." The council dispersed into swirling snow. Afternoon dwindled in the uneasy hush that precedes catastrophe. In the great hall, women sewed leather strips around bundles of heather to craft crude torches. Kitchen boys hacked barrels of lard and melted it with pitch. Old Septon Harwin poured the last of Winterfell's arbor wine into kegs, mixing lamp oil and cloves. This mulled courage, he declared, would scald the white's innards when aflame. No one laughed, yet many raised shaky mugs. In the stable courtyard, Brannon found Brigitte, his father's old destrier. The mare's flanks shuddered with exhaustion, eyes rimmed in frost. He stroked her muzzle. "We ride again tonight, girl. One last charge, perhaps, but worthy of song." She snorted, breath white. He fed her a sliver of dried apple, precious fruit saved for command, and she mouthed it slowly. Nearby grooms daubed tar across horse hides in jagged stripes, hoping the stench might delay icy talons. Brannon adjusted her saddle girth, checking each knot, though his gloves froze stiff. He felt, more than saw, someone approach. Elias' shadow melted into view. "Joe, you'll ride at the gate," she stated. "I must," he replied. "Their leader will taste our line and look for me." She touched the scar whitening his throat. "He nearly killed you. He nearly killed Hope. If I hide, he finishes the deed." Elias' dark eyes glittered. "I once swore I'd never kneel to any kneeler king." She drew a dragonglass dagger from her belt and reversed the grip. "But I'll kneel to serve life. Take it. It drank my father's blood when a bear white took him in the frozen shore. May it drink a king's blood tonight." Benderol. Brannon accepted the blade, its surface glossy black, edges rippling as though alive. "I pray it will, and swiftly." She smiled without mirth, then pivoted back to final preparations. Dusk collapsed like a hood pulled over the world. True to Elias' decree, horns and pipes rose in a cacophony of songs. Old marching ballads, free folk dirges, Riverland's harvest reels. Northmen on the walls stamped rhythm. The courtyard rattled with pot lids beaten together. Pig iron gongs clanged from tower to tower. The noise rolled out over the snowfields, echoing against blind whiteness, until even the white seemed to flinch. Then, the singing ceased by command. Silence boomed larger than any chant. The main gate groaned open a yard. A single draw plank, iced and narrow, slid across the moat. Its surface shimmered with layers of charred resin, quick to flame. Torches lined the rampart, angled downward toward hidden pans of pitch beneath the plank's midsection. Archers crouched atop the guesthouse roof, quivers of black feathered shafts tipped in Valyrian and dragon glass. Beyond the moat, the White Walkers stirred. 3 approached abreast, gliding with the dignity of priests at sacrament. Behind them surged Whites shoulder to shoulder, arms outstretched. Fresh dead from the bite still wore northern cloaks, crests half-burned yet recognizable. Kin come home to kill their own. Brennan rode forth on Brigitte until her hooves tapped the first boards. He raised his sword, a stalwart stand-in for shattered ice render, castle-forged, plain, but home to singing thinness. The dragonglass dagger nested against his hip. The walkers halted 10 paces from the bridgehead. Wind slithered around them. Their breath manifested as glints of frost crystals, swirling like captive galaxies. The central one wore shards of sapphire woven through its breastplate. Brannon felt the weight of its gaze pierce helm and bone. He lifted his voice, not loud, but clear. "I am Brannon Stark, winner of nothing yet, but guardian of hearths you seek to freeze." He paused, tasting blood copper on his tongue. "Cross, and we shall trade more than words." The walkers tilted their heads in unison, uncanny. Then Sapphire Shard stepped onto the plank. Atop the roof, Joramun Pike knocked arrow to string. Breath calm. Aim lower ribcage. Miss the icy cuirass. Seek the hollow of frost flesh. He exhaled. Below, Whites heaved after their master. The narrow board quivered under weight. Brennan tightened his knees on Brigitte. She stamped once. His left hand drifted to dagger hilt. A signal torch flared on the rampart. 2 flicks. Archers drew. The plank sagged as Whites packed upon it, snarling without voice. Frozen wood creaked. Down swooped a single flaming brand from the gatehouse matriculation, striking the pitchpan dead center. Fire geysered upward as if demons exhaled. The board erupted, black resin flashing to blue-white heat. Whites ignited, tumbling into the moat below. Steam screeched as icy water met burning corpses. Yet, Sapphire Shard glided onward amid flame, untouched. It stepped onto solid ground, frost swirling from each footfall. 2 more walkers followed. "Loose!" Pike barked. 7 black-fletched arrows hissed through night air. One shattered against the walker's chest, Valyrian splinters sparkling like starlight, but failing to penetrate. Another grazed its helm, chipping a sliver. The third found the soft juncture beneath armpit. Obsidian entered like a nail into glass, and the walker screamed soundlessly, body fracturing. It exploded in a cyclone of snow shards. The shock rolled through both armies. Whites faltered, convulsing as if strings cut. Several collapsed inert. Others stiffened but reanimated moments later, eyes blazing brighter. The remaining 2 walkers halted, scanning the roofline. Frost mist thickened. Brannon saw icicle lances coalesce in their palms. They hurled upward. Spears of gleaming blue shot skyward faster than hawks. One struck an archer through the gut, pinning him to chimney stone. Another impaled Pike's thigh, slamming him backward. Pike screamed, shoved the shaft clear, flesh freezing around the wound. He crawled to the parapet, strung another arrow, though fingers numbed instantly. He did not falter. The arrow flew, striking a walker's helm square. The creature reeled, helm cracked. A deafening boom reverberated. The second walker unleashed a wave of cold so fierce the fire pans below whuffed out. Flames shrank to ghostly blue tongues. Useless. With the bridge destroyed, Whites plunged wholesale into the moat, stacking atop one another until their frozen bodies formed a new causeway of flesh. They crawled, hands locking with shattered spine fragments, building a living corpse bridge. Brennan spurred Brigitte back toward the gate. His riders loosed quarrels, setting new fires down the breach. But ice overcame each flame in moments. The corpse bridge grew. Brannon swung up the stone stairs to the parapet, scanning. Archers reloaded obsidian arrows, but stock dwindled. Pike bled heavily, arrowheads spent. "We can't drop them faster than they rise," Pike wheezed. Brannon's gaze settled on a siege tower of ice forming beyond the moat. Whites stacking timbers stripped from old siege engines abandoned earlier in the day. White walkers infused frost, welding joints into solid crystal. If that tower breached the wall, the inner ward would drown. "Glover's arrows," Brannon said, Valyrian. He grabbed a horn from a fallen man, sounded 2 curt blasts. Glover answered from the west stair, hefting a crate. Brannon pointed. "The tower. Aim to fell the walkers crafting it." Nenatramdaro. Glover's best archers lined. 60 yards, wind left. They loosed in a ripple. One arrow pierced a walker's throat. It burst. Another arrow missed, sailing into black beyond. The siege tower shuddered, but more walkers replaced the fallen. Then a fresh shriek split sky. Above the far trees a shape uncoiled. A dragon? No, a parody thereof. Once coal-black scales, now caked in rime. Wings half torn, yet vast. Frostfire crackled from its maw, blue and silent. The beast swept toward the battlements, rider astride. A night king, crowned in icy horns. Terror struck like a hammer. Men faltered. Some fled down stairwells. Brannon steadied voice. "Hold fast, dragonfire or corpsefire, stone is stone." But he knew the beast's flame could melt stone as easily as ice. "Not melt," he corrected. "Freeze." The undead dragon banked, jaws opening. A torrent of sapphire flame burst forth. Not heat, but a beam of impossible cold. It struck the southern tower. Granite blackened, then sloughed as brittle shards. The tower screamed with splitting stone, collapsing outward, crushing men and whites alike. Brannon's heart plunged. The south tower anchored a quarter of the inner ring. Its fall tore a gash in Winterfell's defense wide enough to ride 3 horses abreast. "Reserved to the breach," he shouted. Runners dashed. The dragon wheeled for another pass. Glover raised bow but shook. Valyrian arrow or not, hitting a jeering beast in dusk gloom was hope's folly. Yet from the godswood rose new light. A figure emerged, cloak of midnight velvet lined with silver fox fur. Maester Lurik later swore this cloak moved without wind, as if wings. She was Lady Lessa, younger sister to Brannon, long absent on pilgrimage to the Isle of Faces. In her raised hands glowed a brand of weirwood ember, sap mixed with oil, ignited in arcane red. She uttered words older than first men's myths. The godswood heart tree answered. Its leaves shivered, then blazed with crimson luminance. A gout of scarlet flame spiraled upward, meeting the dragon mid-dive. Frostfire and old god flame collided in shrieking brilliance. The dragon reeled, one wing sheared by sudden heat. It veered, crashing beyond the north curtain with a thunder like mountains colliding. Cheer erupted. Hope burst alive. Brannon sprinted across the yard toward the breach, even as rubble smoked. Through swirling dust, he saw the corpse bridge reach the inner moat. Whites now battered the half-ajar gate with shields of frozen flesh. Walkers strode across their backs, spears testing doors. "Oil," Brannon ordered. Barrels rolled from the armory. Tar sloshed out, slicking the cobbles. Torches followed, an inferno fanned by hungry wind. The first walkers to step through ignited. Frost armor steamed, then cracked. One shattered, shards tinkling like bells. Another staggered ablaze, yet kept forward momentum until Glover's axe removed its leg. Men cheered again. But cheers choked off when behind that walker lumbered the giant white from the moat, now afire, yet relentless. Flaming beard of dead moss, tusk skewered with icicles. It charged, swinging an uprooted merle on his club. The gates remained splintered, bodies carts flung aside. 5 spearmen died in one sweep. Daughten. Brannon vaulted from a cart onto its knee, plunging his castle blade between joint. The blade wedged, but held. He dangled, felt leg muscles coil to buck him free. He released the hilt. Scrambled up the beast's thigh using half-melted sinew as ladder. Ash rained like volcanic grit. The air roasted yet froze skin in alternating pulses. At collarbone height, he drew Elias' dragonglass dagger. One heartbeat, two. He jammed the blade beneath the giant's ear. Crack. Dot. The white exploded into shards of ice and ash. Brennan plummeted with them. He thought death would greet him, but landed atop a mound of dead snow softened by heat. Bones cracked. His or debris, he knew not. Elia's hand hauled him out. Her sling gone, arm bleeding but steadier than steel. "You owe me ale," she growled. "I owe you the north," he managed. Another horn blast. One long, for reposition. The siege tower, still forging, now neared wall height. Without dragon, but with Walker's chant, it crawled forward on icy runners, pikes protruding like whiskers. "We end that now," Brannon said. He marshaled a cohort of Manderley axemen, each bearing torches and oil jugs. Shielded by archers whose few Valyrian arrows remained, they charged across the rubble, through breach, into no man's land between corpses and tower base. Whites clawed up, but archers felled them. Axemen splashed oil along runner joints, lit fuses. Flames climbed timbers, meeting inner frost. Steam hissed, wood shrieked. Tower frames sagged sideways. A walker leapt clear, skewered by Valyrian arrow mid-air. It shattered before impact. Timber groaned. Tower collapsed, crushing 100 whites beneath. Splinters flew like shrapnel. Smoke gusted black, blotting stars. But victory cut short. Moans rose beyond the smoke. Thousands more dead pushed forward, inexhaustible. Walkers withdrew to distance. Studying. Snow resumed. Heavier. Brennan staggered behind shrinking lines. The yard stank of burnt pitch, rotted flesh, melted stone. Fires dwindled, quenched by curling ice creeping from walker corpses. Lurik appeared, cheeks frost-slashed. Stores half gone, walls bleeding on every side. Brannon steadied breath. "We hold till dawn. Dawn is hours away," Lurik whispered. "Then we make them count their hours." He turned, eyes falling on Liessa kneeling by the heart tree, visible through broken hall doors. Her crimson flames guttered, nearly spent. Sparks winked across courtyard. Brannon strode to her. "Sister." She raised trembling fingers. "The old gods hear, but price is high. Only blood of weirwood can keep fire alive. Mine flows thin." She coughed, spat pink. He knelt. "Rest then. You bought us night. Let men finish." Her voice was distant. "If dawn comes, sow seeds of fire in every root. The land itself must burn to be reborn." "Nadim." He hesitated, then touched her brow. "If dawn comes," he promised. Hours drowned in endless assault. Fighting devolved into pockets. Kennel Yard, Granary Stair, hot spring tunnels. Brigitte fell to a spear when whites tunneled through collapsed masonry. Brannon slew the killer, wept once, then pressed on. Elia lost 2 fingers, but saved a dozen by collapsing a smithy roof on encroaching horde. By the 3rd hour before dawn, Winterfell's defenders had shrunk to perhaps a quarter of dawn muster. They held the Godswood, the armory court, and the broken great hall ringed by rubble. All else belonged to wind and death. Yet the sky in east paled, an anemic gray, still precious. White seemed to slow, tilted heads as though hearing distant summons. Walkers gathered before the Godswood gate, their number reduced but formidable. Perhaps 20 remained, each a general of frost. At their center stood the Night King newly risen from fallen brother. His crown dripped icicles, eyes luminous beyond grief. In his hands grew a lance of razored ice. Brannon stood atop the stair of the great hall. Beside him Glover, Dustin, Elia, Joramund with bandaged thigh, Lurik clutching a torch. 100 defenders formed a ragged shield line. The Night King advanced alone. He stopped 10 paces away, snow swirling in orbits about his frame. With slow grace he stabbed lance into ground. An invitation, challenge, prophecy. Brannon drew breath, stepped forward. "I am last son of Winterfell," he called, voice cracking yet sure. "Come claim my heart if you dare." The Night King tilted crown. It seemed amusement. He swept hand. Whites parted, revealing a figure dragged by ropes. Harlan Stark, eyes blue, flesh pallid. Dead. A collective gasp wrenched the shields. Brannon's knees weakened. Cousin mentor, sacrificed to save him, now weaponized against him. The Night King released Harlan. Whites shoved him forward. He staggered, stiff motions unnatural, yet sword still sheathed at hip. He approached stare. Tears froze on Brannon's lashes. He whispered, "Forgive me." He descended alone to meet his cousin midway. Dragonglass dagger in right hand, castle sword in left. Harlan raised empty gaze, unsheathed his own blade. Not Valyrian, but Night's Watch dark steel, edges rimmed in hoarfrost. They circled. Snow-muffled world. First clash. Steel on steel. Sparks hissed. Harlan swung with undead strength. Brannon parried barely. Arm numb. Second pass. Brannon feinted high, slashed thigh. No blood, only dust. Harlan riposted, carving pauldron. Brannon's shoulder went cold. Third pass. Final. Brannon lowered guard intentionally, letting blade slide across chestmail. He stepped inside Harlan's reach, locked forearm, plunged dragonglass beneath jaw up into brain. Harlan stiffened. For heartbeat he seemed aware. Lips parted, eyes flickered their old gray. Then his body shattered, gentle as snowburst. Armor clattered empty. Brannon sagged. Night King watched, inscrutable. Now it moved. It grasped ice lance. Strode toward Brannon, measured. Unstoppable, Elia shouted, leaping from the line, hurling a dragonglass javelin. The Night King flicked wrist. Javelin veered aside, embedding in stone. Lord Dustin's arrow followed. The king raised palm, shaft froze mid-air. Dropped brittle. Brannon advanced, fatigue drowning limbs, but rage drove him. He swung castle sword. Night King parried with lance haft, blade rhymed instantly. He slashed again. Again. Sparks died before birth. Frost crept across sword, hilt, glove. Brannon let go before cold reached bone. He drew remaining Valyrian shard. Sliver from ice render, bound as dirt, ducked, rolled beneath sweeping lance, slashed hamstring. Steel scraped ice plate, no yield. He rose behind, thrust to spine. Lance butt struck ribs, flung him aside. He crashed against tumbled column, head ringing. Night King closed. Lance raised like executioner's axe. Suddenly, Pike's voice screamed hoarse. "Remember Eastwatch." A last Valyrian arrow flew from parapet. Pike, half-blind, braced on crutch. Arrow arced, impossibly true. It struck Night King's crown, not heart, but temple rim. Crack. Dot mole. Crown split. Dot key. Night King jerked. Brannon lunged. Dragonglass dagger first. He drove the blade into opening, twisting, pressing until his palm met icy helm. Frost flared. Blue light seared white. Thunder of shattering glaciers boomed. Night King erupted in nova of scintillating shards. Wind of cold, flinging Brannon backward. Silence. Whites froze, trembled. Blue lights guttered, winked out. Across courtyard they collapsed like puppets cut. Piles of bones, armor, desolation. Walkers elsewhere reeled, fell to knees, fracturing into stardust one by one. The corpse armies beyond walls ceased. Wherever Night King's will reached, it broke. In moments the battlefield stood empty, save dead that would rise no more. Snow kept falling, gentle now. Brannon lay staring at sky tinged pink. Dawn kissed horizon. Breath fogged warm. He rose unsteady, surveyed devastation. Winterfell ruined, walls breached, towers broken, but standing. Fires smoldered, hounds barked amid smoke. Survivors staggered into view. Scores, perhaps hundreds. They looked to him. He turned to Liesa. She knelt under Hearttree, whose leaves burned crimson gold in sunrise, no longer aflame but glowing with promise. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Dawn." Brennan dropped to knees, sobs shredding throat, grief, relief, weight of sacrifice. Elia knelt beside him, resting bleeding hand on his shoulder. The sun crested, first full rays in weeks. They spilled over battlements, gilding ice shards that littered ground like faceted jewels. Where the Night King had stood, a hollow remained, ash of finest snow swirling up, dissipating in warming air. Men began to cheer, weak at first, then swelling, echoing across wreckage. Bells clanged in broken steeples. Wolves howled, long and triumphant. Yet Brannan's gaze found horizon north. There, dark storm clouds lingered still. He knew the war not done. Pockets of dead still roamed, lesser walkers perhaps stirring anew. Winter's heart was cracked, not obliterated. But dawn proved the night could bleed. He stood, lifted scarred sword high. Sunlight sparkled along its battered edge. "Build pyres," he commanded. "Bury brave hearts. Send ravens. Tell every kingdom winter's doom has broken, but its shadow lingers. Let them ride with flame and song." Around him survivors straightened. Some wept, some laughed. Many simply breathed for first time without ice in lungs. Brennan looked upon their faces. Wildling, Crow, Northman, and Southron Selzord alike. No walls between them now. "We are the shield," he said softly. "We held." And under the newborn sun, amidst ruins strewn with frost diamonds, a new chapter of men began. The snow kept falling, softer, shining like ash of distant stars settling to earth. Each flake a quiet vow that darkness ruled only so long as hearts dared not burn. Far beyond shattered battlements, in a glacial cavern where ancient rivers of ice met the sea, a single fragment of crown, shard of sapphire edged in night, rested upon a dais of obsidian. It pulsed once, faint, like a dying ember. Then, slowly, it began to glow. "Ya, ah, ni, way, nearly, or say, I, call, way." The crown shard pulsed again, a tremor of inner blue hinting at deeper fire. Frost spidered outward across the obsidian plinth, questing fingers that creaked as they stretched over black glass. When the tendrils touched the cavern wall, the ice recoiled, as though sensing impurity in the rock's volcanic heat. The shard quieted, its glow withdrawing to a dull ember. But it had learned something of the world. Heat yet lingered in these southern stones, and heat must be quenched. Miles above, sun climbed reluctantly through pewter haze. Winterfell's courtyard steamed where snow met smoldering wreckage. The air smelled of peat smoke, singed hair, and melt water. Survivors trudged among heaps of broken weapons, prying usable steel from iced corpses. Carts creaked through slush, laden with shattered timbers toward makeshift pyres outside the eastern broken gate. Wolves scavenged at the fringe of the corpse mounds, muzzles red. No man turned them away. Let beasts gorge, for meat spoiled too fast and burial would take moons. Brannon Stark walked the ramparts, counting losses that numbers could not hold. The South Tower gone. The Ash Yard gutted. 700 brothers-at-arms dead and 50 more maimed past soldiering. He paused at every breach, staring northward as if his gaze alone could spy the next wave before it formed. Each time he saw only the silent plain, filled with glittering shards that reflected the weak sun like a field of diamonds. They looked beautiful. They were fragments of nightmare. At mid-morning he stood before the Hearttree. Liesa lay on a pallet of furs beneath its bloody leaves, breath shallow, lips blue. Maester Lurik pressed warmed wine to her mouth, half spilled down her throat. "Will she wake?" Brennan whispered. Lurik shook his head. "She burned herself through the weir." The old gods answer, but the answering cost is life. A few hours mayhaps. "Dan?" Brennan sank to his knees and took her hand. Her fingers were cold splinters. He closed his eyes, remembering her laughter on green summer days beside the pool, when ravens flitted overhead and their father teased them with wooden practice blades. He bowed his head until tears soaked her knuckles. A shadow crossed the snow. Elia knelt opposite, resting her bandaged stump. 2 fingers gone? On the weirwood's root. We rebuild or we perish, she said softly. But grief has its hour. After that we sharpen axes. Men shall. Brannon nodded without looking up. Sharpen them well. West of the Godswood, the great hall's roof had caved where the dragon's frostfire sheared its joists. Blackened beams jutted like ribs of a broken whale. There, carpenters already stacked new timbers salvaged from guest houses. Sir Willis Glover oversaw them, one arm in a sling, shouting until his voice cracked. He saw Brannon approach and offered a grim salute. Ravens flew at dawn, he reported. White Harbor, Barroton, Deepwood Motte. All swear relief, though roads vanish under drifts. No. They will send grain first, Brannon said. Men second. And rumors third. Glover's eyes flicked toward the north. Word says the dead still move in pockets, leaderless but dangerous. Our riders chase them day and night, but each pack we cut spills 5 more frostbitten recruits into their ranks. Then we cull with fire, Brannon replied. No burials, pyres for all. A hush spread among workers within earshot. To burn the dead was anathema to northern custom, yet no one protested. They had seen what respect for corpses had wrought. Near to the storehouses, Lady Shara Dustin organized scribes with ledgers, tallying seed and salt meat. When Brannon joined her, she pressed parchment into his gamblet. We feed 800 mouths at half ration for 2 moons, she summarized, voice clipped. A harsh tally, but possible if White Harbor's fleet breaks ice to deliver grain. Else the small folk will starve before thaws. Lord Manderley promised river barges, Brannon said. Rivers freeze, she reminded. We need sledges and whale oil to soften channels. I ask leave to ride west, rally the Rills and Bear Island. They still have smokehouses full of seal. And the 19. Take it, he granted, though letting her leave pained him. But travel in companies of 40, each with torches burning day and night, and carry dragon glass. She tapped the dagger at her hip, nodded, and strode off to choose riders. By dusk the pyres ignited beyond the east breach, ragged pillars of orange glaring against violet twilight. Brannon stood beside Elia on the ruined gatehouse roof. They watched sparks whirl upward into night, driven by gusts that smelled of tar and marrow. How many yet to burn, she asked. 1,000 at least. Maybe more. They died for dawn. Let the dawn taste their ash. He tasted bitterness. And still we cannot spare a tear for each. We number tears like arrows. The wind rose, fluttering her fox fur cloak. That shard of crown, did you see it crack? She asked. Only the burst of light. He rubbed a livid bruise on his neck. Did you? I saw pieces fly. Most melted to powder midair, but I think a fragment survived, thrown beyond the walls. I felt it pass me. She frowned. A cold like steel through my ribs, then gone. Brannon's gaze drifted across the fields. If it exists, we must find it. Even a spark may kindle night anew. 3 days later, ravens from Eastwatch survivors reached Winterfell. Sir Yoramont Pike, crutch under arm, read the message aloud in the council chamber. Aloft with half its wall missing. Snow blew in, dusting the table. Fisherfolk at Hardhome sight ships of black ice approaching. No sail, no crew visible. They drift south by current, yet frost wreathes hulls as if fresh carved. The living fear to near them. Gulls die on masts. Brannon traced the map. Dotty. If the ice ships follow currents, they'll skirt Skagos and enter Bay of Seals. White Harbor lies then between them and the neck. Maester Lurik adjusted spectacles. Could be debris from shattered wall sections, on driftwood, coated in sorcery. Or seeds, Elia said, planted to bloom armies at another shore. Sir Willis Glover slammed fist. We cannot chase ghost vessels while rebuilding. We must, Brannon countered. If even one makes landfall, south will be ambushed quiet. The wall of bodies we shattered may resurrect piece by piece. He looked to Pike. Take a fast sloop from White Harbor. Shadow those hulls, learn what menace sails. Burn them if possible. Pike's eyes flared indignant. One leg and you make me salt wolf. You stood at Eastwatch longer than any. You know Seafrost. Choose crew brave enough. I give you Maester Luric's apprentice for ravens. He paused. And I trust you to return. Pike bowed stiffly. Then I'll damn the sea. When the council dispersed, Brannon lingered on the battlements. Night descended in curtains of pale green light. Aurora danced across northern sky, shimmering like veils of spirits. He felt small beneath cosmic shimmer, yet also watched. Somewhere beyond those curtains, powers stirred. He fingered the empty dagger sheath. Dragonglass brittle, shattered in the Night King's death. Only fragments remained, ground now into arrowheads. He resolved to seek more. 10 leagues south of Winterfell, along the King's Road, a column approached. Lord Manderley's men in sea-green cloaks, pulling sledges laden with salt cod and barrels of pickled herring. Behind them limped wagons of wounded refugees. Atop the lead sledge rode Ser Riam Redwine, envoy from King Harren the Black of the Riverlands, which ruled the nominal Iron Throne after Aegon's conquest, had never come in this timeline. Brannon greeted them in the outer ward, flanked by banners that snapped ragged. Redwine bowed gallantly, even as his cheeks quivered in the chill. His grace laments North's tragedy, he proclaimed. He sends grain and men, but road and river hinder. We come offering alliance. Open your gates to Riverlord's protection, and Harren will dispatch 5,000 heavy horse come spring. Brannon's eyes narrowed. Come spring. Winter's war won't wait. His grace's strength lies in fields soon sown, Redwine explained. Armies cannot march in this cold. Death marches, Brannon said. Redwine forced a smile. Which is why you must concede strategic command. Harren's war council boasts maesters versed in Valyrian pyromancies. Elia stepped forward, voice stone hard. Harren burned his own vassals last summer to claim their mines. What trust has he earned? Redwine coughed. Rumors. He punishes treason only. Brannon raised palm. Tell your king the North bows to no Blackstone tyrant. We hold our lines. If he sends men unconditionally, we welcome them. But Winterfell remains stark. Bendy. Redwind's jaw tightened. He inclined head. As you decree. Yet know that alliances forged cold may warm in time. Warm too much, and they melt, Brannon retorted. Manderley's men hauled stores into half-collapsed barns. Children swarmed the sledges, snatching dried fish before stewards could ration. Laughter briefly colored the courtyard, a fragile bloom. That night, while others feasted on herring stew, Brannon met with Lord Manderley in the broken solar. Candles sputtered in draughts. Maps slithered on the table. The Riverlords smell weakness, Manderley warned, voice low and solemn. But they also fear what we faced alone. If Harren thinks Night King's slain for good, he'll delay aid until we break ourselves stamping pockets of dead. Then we show strength, Brannon said. We ride against the largest nest tomorrow. Reports place it near the ruins of Last Hearth. He tapped map. If we purge that den, word spreads faster than ravens. Manderley stroked his frost-rimmed beard. Take Manderley spears. We've harpooned leviathans. Whites are but minnows. Bane? Brennan gripped his arm. Your courage swells the North's heart. At dawn, cavalry mustered outside Winterfell. 200 horse, half of them shaggy mountain garrons, the rest destriers stripped from slain knights. Brannon donned new blackened breastplate, emblazoned with direwolf. Wreathed in crimson flames, Elia rode at his left with free folk outriders. Manderley commanded right. In the ranks trotted Lady Barbary Risewell on a pale mare, offering sardonic smirks to anyone who shivered. They galloped through fields where sun-coal of dawn glinted off ice shards. Each shard crunched under hooves, releasing tiny puffs of frost that sparkled behind like comet tails. No birds sang. By midday they reached the weeping water, now frozen thick. Carrion crows hopped along the banks, pecking at something half-buried. When riders scraped aside ice, they found a corpse frozen upright. A Night's Watch ranger, arms entwined with chains of wormwood willow. eyes blue, no longer glowing, quenched. On his breast, inked in blood, a spiral symbol reminiscent of Children of the Forest glyphs, yet skewed, broken. Brennan studied it uneasily. Ilya spat. It marks the land for their return, like scent posts for wolves. Destroy it, Brannon ordered. The corpse shattered beneath axes. They pressed on. Snow grew deeper near Last Hearth. Pines bowed under white weight. Far ahead, the umber keep jutted like black teeth. Smoke rose from within. Odd, because surely no living kept hearth there. Scouts reported whites clustering inside, using the walls as windbreak. Brannon surveyed terrain. Outer palisade collapsed, inner courtyard open. He formed plans swiftly. Manderley's spears flank their south, he ordered. Elias' riders draw dead out the north gate, feint retreat, then encircle. I lead assault through breach with torches and dragonglass. Cousins and clan chiefs nodded grim. Horns sounded. The columns split, slipping like wolves in drifting snow. Ilya galloped first, horn whooping. Her outriders fired flaming arrows over the gatehouse. Undead within responded, shrieking. Gates splintered outward as a wave of corpses roiled forth. Ilya wheeled away, taunting. Whites pursued, feet crunching crusted drifts. Meanwhile, Brannon's vanguard poured through a yawning breach in the palisade. They hacked down straggler whites, dashed toward Main Keep. Inside the great hall he found horror. Umber banners draped around a throne of bones. White bones fused by frost. Atop sat a figure robed in the flayed hides of wolves. As Brannon approached, the figure's hood fell, revealing not withered flesh, but smooth blue-white glass, shaped like a human visage. Faceless, eyes blank. Manderley barged in behind him. New devilry, he muttered. The glass effigy raised its hand. On the throne arms cracked. Ice spires shot upward, hurling crystalline darts. One struck Brannon's pauldron, chipping steel. He ducked, rolled behind pillars. Spearmen flooded the hall, torches blazing. They thrust dragonglass pikes, yet each time a spear touched the glass figure it passed through to embed in the bones behind. Illusion or intangible spirit? Brannon recalled the shard in the cavern, a will without flesh. Could this be its projection? He shouted, "Break the throne, collapse it!" Warhammers slammed bone. The structure groaned, shards raining. The glass figure flickered, image rippling like pond, disturbed by stone. It raised both arms. Frost cascaded from rafters, trapping two soldiers in instant ice cocoons. Brannon spotted the spiral glyph carved into the seat's backrest, identical to the marker on the Ranger. He drew Valyrian dirk, charged, and plunged blade into the glyph. An ear-splitting crack reverberated. The glass figure shattered into motes of blue light that shot upward through roof and vanished into gray heavens. The frost in rafters melted in gush. Ice cocoons split. Trapped men fell, coughing steam. Outside, Elias' riders reported the whites in full rout, collapsing mid-pursuit once the throne broke. Brannon stared at the smoking bones. It was a conduit, he realized. The shard found a focus, raised a beacon. Manderley wiped sweat, though cold. Destroy every mark we find. No shrines for their return. Ilya returned, blood on cheek. She pointed north. Scouts saw blue glows streak skyward after the crest shattered, toward the shadowlands beyond the shivering sea. Brennan's pulse quickened. The shard seeks cradle of magic older than our maps. He pondered. To leave north now risked letting Riverlords swallow the realm while Starks vanished, chasing phantoms. Yet if Shard regained full power abroad, it could birth night wider than before. That night, as they camped in the umber kitchens burning lard for heat, Brannon gathered his captains. It aims east, he said, into lands of shadow and demon smoke. But to pursue, we'd cross seas. We need ships, dragons, or both. Lord Manderley leaned forward. My whalers reach Skagos only. Farther east means tall masts and deep holds. Ilya's eyes glinted. Free folk legends speak of icebound passages north of Ashai, where wooden ships freeze and break, but bronze-scaled leviathans watched by dragon princes once soared above roaring fissures. Perhaps dragon eggs sleep there. Brannon rubbed temples. Dragon eggs. Or myth. Laessa's faint voice drifted from palate. They carried her with them. Not myth, she rasped. All glanced in shock. She sat half-propped, eyes shining with fever. In Isle of Faces I saw glimpses in the Greenseers pool. Eggs hidden deep beneath Valyrian ash. 3 still quickened by heartfire, waiting for song of sun and salt. Brannon moved to her side. Where? She coughed. Crimson flecks on linen. 8 Dragonstone. The old seat of storms. Manderley frowned. Dragonstone belongs to House Massey now. Proud, but few. Far south. South will fight us, Glover observed. South may need saving, Brannon answered. If Crown Shard flees beyond sea, we race it with fire of dragons. Elia stood. Then we split. You sail to Dragonstone. I hold north with Dustin and Glover. When dragons hatch, return with Dawnfire. No. Brannon exhaled long. To leave now. Laessa clasped his wrist, surprising strength. Go, brother. My thread wanes. Let it weave purpose. I will keep watch here in spirit. Tears blurred his eyes. He kissed her brow and stood. 3 days later, White Harbor bustled like summer festival, though cold bit marrow. Work crews broke ice around the quays with iron-shod poles. Lord Manderley's flagship, Fearsome Maid, readied provisions. Cod, hardtack, wine diluted with honey to resist freeze. Smaller cogs flanked her, banners painted with gray direwolves and sea-green tridents. Brannon boarded, carrying only Valyrian dirk, castle blade, and a pouch of bright obsidian shards. Beside him strode Maester Lurik, refused leave behind, and Jormund Pike, legs still bound, but salt thirst unquenched. Elia clasped Brannon's forearm at gangplank. Return with Skyfire, she said. He nodded. Guard Winterfell. Trust no southern promise. With a boom of drum, lines cast off. Sails unfurled like wings of pale swans against dim dawn. The fleet crept east, across bay ice floes, picks and oars splintering path. By dusk, the gray cliffs of Skagos rose serrated under low clouds. Night possessed strange hush. Whales sighed beneath sheets of ice dragging against hulls. Below decks, Brannon pored over charts, lit by lantern dot. Pike entered. Sea spray and beard. Sentinels spot black hulks drifting astern, he reported. Ice vessels, the message warned. No crew, low in water, but they follow currents as predicted. Brannon rose. We intercept? Burn them from distance, Pike advised. But watch what emerges. On deck, sailors brandished pitch-dipped arrows. The hulks loomed. 3 ships fused with ice, masts sheathed, sails ragged. No symbol flew. Yet as Fearsome Maid's torches lit, figures stirred on decks. Frozen sailors, eyes pale, bound to ship by ice root growing through flesh. Beyond them at prow, jutted pillar of blue crystal. Another conduit. Brannon unslung bow, knocked dragonglass arrow, aimed at the crystal-spearing sky. The arrow loosed, whistling, and struck true. Light burst. Ice spidered up masts, then detonated outward in radial shards. The hulks cracked, water flooding holds. The frozen sailors collapsed, limbs floating free. An echoing howl rose from the sea depths, like whale song warped by lament. Water around ships turned steaming blue, then subsided. Pike exhaled. One prong severed, but others may sail south, Brannon warned. We must reach Dragonstone before one drifts that far. They skirted Braavos coast under dusky sun. Merchants at docks stared at the battered northern fleet, eyes wide at shards embedded in hulls. But none barred them. News of winter's war had bled across the narrow sea. Fear opened harbors. At Braavos Sea Lord Tower, Brannon was granted audience. The Sea Lord, robed in purple, listened to tale of Crown Shard and Burnt Walker. When Brannon asked harbor rights, the Sea Lord bowed his head. The Iron Bank invests in survival, he said. Refit here, no fee, but bring end to the long night. We charged much interest on living kings. Dead men pay none. Within 2 days sails mended. Hulls tarred. Holds filled with oranges, limes to ward scurvy. Bravosi shipwrights gifted barrels of wildfire. Rare. Bright green, promised to burn even on water. Fearsome maids sailed south beyond Pentos. Storms lashed. Masts groaned. At night, Brannon dreamt of Liessa beckoning from water's edge, a child of frost tugging her sleeve. Weeks later, Dragonstone's jagged silhouette pierced mist like talon. Volcanic smoke curled from Dragonmont vent, warm air that turned sleet to rain. For first time since Wall's fall, Brannon felt wet, not frozen. Lord Massey rode out with 30 men, armor salt-stained. He studied northern banners skeptically. "You arrive unbidden," he greeted. "I come seeking eggs hidden in your crypts," Brannon said blunt. "Dragon eggs?" Massey laughed. "If stone eggs hatch, I'll dance naked with krakens." Brennan's jaw tightened. He produced the Valyrian dirt. "Night returns. Only dragons may scorch it. Deny me, and darkness will flood your halls first." Massey paused, eyes narrowing. "Words fly south of monsters on ice." He gestured to charred frostbite scars visible on Brannon's throat. "Your skin speaks harrowing." He sighed. "Crypt doors stand since Storm King days. I grant passage, if you vow no harm to my folk." "By the old gods anew," Brannon swore. Torches led them through tunnels blazing with geothermal steam. The stone grew slick. Sulfur stung nostrils. At the deepest vault, ancient Valyrian runes etched into obsidian doors glimmered red. Lurik traced glyphs. "Spell of heat and heart," he murmured. "Requires blood of dragon lords. Or one touched by ice fire." Brannon raised brow. Pike grunted. "You were almost a corpse king. Maybe counts." Brannon slashed palm, pressed blood to rune. Steam hissed. Doors groaned open. They entered vast cavern lit by magma fissures. Upon basalt dais rested 3 eggs. One deep crimson streaked with gold veins. One black as night, blue motes glittering. One ivory shot through with green whorls. They pulsed faint warmth. Brannon approached, knees trembling from awe. He laid palm on crimson shell. It thrummed like distant drum. But a chill swept chamber. The eggs glowed dimmed. Behind them stood a silhouette. A woman robed in faded scarlet. Chain belt wrought of strange bronze. Eyes glowed amethyst. She was Melanira, last fire priestess of Volantis, guardian of dragon seeds. She spoke, voice echoing. "Only one whose heart balances ice and fire may wake them." Brannon frowned. "I fought ice with fire. But did you embrace both?" She extended slender finger at the bruise on his neck. "The Night King's darkness lingers within. It scars your soul yet." Lurik protested. "He saved the realm." She ignored. "There is risk. Kindle eggs with flame of life, or freeze them to stone forever. Choice binds fate. Do you dare gamble dawn on uncertain heart?" Brannon closed eyes, recalling cold that seized him beneath Night King's clasp. The void where love and fear both died. He also recalled flame of Liessa's weirwood fire, scorching that void. Between those extremes, he still breathed. He opened eyes. "I carry both scars. That balance is all men possess." He unsheathed dirk, pricked finger, let blood drip onto each egg. Melanira raised arms, chanting Valyrian verse. Lava veins brightened, heat surged. Eggs shimmered, scales shifting hues. Thunder rattled cavern. Suddenly, blue frost crackled across basalt. Crown shards echo. Light coalesced above dais. Shape of icy serpent. Jaws wide. It lunged at eggs. Brannon sprang. Shielding shells with body. Frostbit armor. But he held. Pike hurled wildfire jar. Green flame engulfed serpent. It shrieked, twisting, dissolving in sparks. Eggs pulsed brighter. Cracks spidered over crimson shell. A shrill chirp echoed, a hatchling voice. Steam swelled, filling chamber. Brannon stepped back as shell shards burst outward. A small dragon emerged. Scales ember red, eyes molten gold. Flames licked its nostrils. It screeched, wings unfurling. Moments later, ivory egg split. Greenish dragonet tumbled out, hissing. The black-blue egg trembled, but did not break. Frost filmed it again, glow fading. Melanira whispered, "Two flames born. One yet dormant. Its heart stolen by crown shard afar." So, the shard fed on unborn life. Brannon cradled red hatchling. Its heat burned leather yet felt welcome. He looked to companions. "We sail home with Dawnfire. 2 sparks. Enough to rally realms." Lurik nodded though fear glistened. "And hope third egg survives until shard slain." In White Harbor, Elia received Raven of Dragon birth. She smiled grimly, then turned to urgent reports. Riverlord forces massing at Moat Cailin, claiming to bring aid yet demanding homage. Winterfell's garrison, thinned by sorties, cannot hold both south and north lines. She penned quick letter. "We endure, but politics frost heavier than night. Return swift." Across sea in cavern of obsidian, crown shard pulsed faster, drawing strength from unborn black-blue dragon. Ice roots latched deeper into stone. Shapes stirred in shadows, forms not of man or white, but crystalline hybrids, limbs spired like coral, eyes swirling nebulae. They waited orders. Shard's ember flared once, projecting vision of 2 dragons winging north across sky. Jealous fury rippled through its crystal lattice. It keened, soundless terror that rippled across currents, awakening every remnant white north of Frostfangs. Corpses rose, eyes rekindled. Winter had fractured but not ended. Night sought new shape. Colder, stranger, spreading from underworld seas. Fearsome maid raced wind. Hatchlings nested in heated crate. Melanira tended them with coals and incantations. The red she named Phyrus, the green Meraxes in honor of old Queen's mount. Phyrus already breathed flickers. Meraxes bit sailors' gloves. Brannon spent nights on stern deck communing, offering bits of meat, stroking scaly heads. The dragons imprinted. They followed his scent, chirping when he left. Days before landfall at White Harbor, storm broke. Snow and lightning swirling spiral. Pike feared magical tempest. Phyrus clawed at crate, shrieking. Brannon unlatched lid. The dragon leapt, wings beating ragged. He climbed mast rigging. Phyrus followed, perching on yardarm. Brannon lashed rope around waist, facing gale. He spread arms. Phyrus mirrored stance. Together they faced storm's heart. A vortex tinted blue. Within flickered figure of frost serpent, conjured by shard to hinder. Phyrus roared, exhaling first true gout of orange flame. It struck vortex, steam blasting. Lightning forked, striking mast. Brannon's world flashed white. Rope snapped. He tumbled, but Phyrus swooped. Claws gripping cloak collar, slowing fall. Pike and sailors heaved nets, catching both. The storm shredded to flakes, perhaps hindered by hatchling's flame. Phyrus landed, panting, sparks dripping from jaws. Crew cheered. First dragonfire felt since Age of Heroes. Brannon hugged the beast. Good heart, little Dawn. When they reached harbor, townsfolk gaped at dragons perched on mast tips, wings spreading like living banners. Bells rang. Children chased after their shadows. Songsmiths on quayside already rhymed verses of Phyrus the Dawnflame. Drake who split storm. Elia awaited in courtyard, helm under arm. She watched Phyrus with fear and wonder. North remembers, she said softly, and learns new myths. Brannon dismounted, embracing her. But enemies gather. We march south before Riverlords choke Moat Cailin. She gestured. Walk, toe. They strode ramparts where snow thawed under dragon warmth radiating from crate, carried by 4 sailors. Elia updated. Scouts saw Heron's banners at Neck, plus sellswords from Tyrosh, lured by spoils. At same time, dead roam again in Bear Island forests, sign of Shard's new servants. Brannon clenched fist. We fight two wars. Cold behind, greed ahead. Two dragons, Aelia reminded. Yet third unhatched in shards breed new horrors in shadows. That night Phyrus roosted in Broken Tower. Miraxes curled around Brazier. Brennan convened commanders. Plan born. Dragon riders strike Riverlord's flank, burn Ziga engines, scatter sellswords. Ground forces hold Causeway. Meanwhile, Glover leads fleet to intercept any ice hulks entering Bight of Pike. Melanira warned. Dragons young, flame short bursts. Must strike swift, withdraw to recover. Brannon accepted risk. At dawn he donned hardened leather, charred by Phyrus talons. Makeshift dragon harness. Melanira guided chant. Blood to fire, fire to sky. He climbed tower stair. Heart pounding. Phyrus crouched, a loud saddle rope across shoulders. Its body thrummed heat. He mounted. Phyrus shifted weight, wings beating dust. The roof edge crumbled under gusts. They leapt, plummeted 2 stories before wings caught air. Sudden lift yanked breath. Cold wind lashed face. Brannon whooped. Miraxes followed, carrying Melanira. 2 mages soared above White Harbor, townsfolk gazing skyward in reverent silence. They banked south, sun glinting off scales. Phyrus wings like stained glass, red with gold edges. Miraxes dull green blending pine forest below. Approaching Moat Cailin they spied Riverlord camp. Thousands of tents along Causeway, trebuchets aimed north, banners of Heron Black Tower, Bracken Red Stallion, Frey 2 Blue Towers. Brennan noted, they came to help. Yet Ziga craft pointed at north. He urged Phyrus into steep dive. Dragons screamed joy, flames sputtering. Catapults below adjusted too slow. Phyrus loosed blast across siege lines. Trebuchet timbers ignited. Men fled. Screaming. Brannon pulled skyward, circling. Miraxes followed. Flame weaker but enough to panic horses. On ground, Elias outriders charged across Causeway, cutting retreating men. Northern horns brayed. Riverlord lines collapsed into marsh. Brannon spotted large tent bearing Blackstone sigil. He swooped. Phyrus talon snatched banner pole, tearing cloth. Inside, Seraim Redwine scrambled, jaw slack, seeing dragon shadow. Brannon let banner drop and shouted, "Aid denied." Phyrus roared, blame-kissed moat swamp, exploding methane pockets. Mud geysers flung armored men into bog. Within hours, Riverlord army shattered. Survivors fleeing south. Ziegelein smoldered. Stench of burnt leather thick. Brannon landed on Causeway. Phyrus folding wings. Northern soldiers cheered. Some knelt. Aelia dismounted horse, lifted helm. One battle, but born to legend. He wiped soot from brow. Legends feed hope. Hope feeds swords. That night, in makeshift hall of wood planks, Brannon addressed assembled lords and clan chiefs. Candlelight danced on Phyrus sleeping coiled behind throne. "We have turned greed south," he said. "Yet winter's heart still lurks across sea, nursing unborn dragon of ice. We ride not just for realm, but for time unborn. Children who must never taste that night." "Damn now." Murmurs of assent. "I call banners again," he continued. "Not to my house alone, but to life. While north rebuilds walls of fire, I sail east with dragons to shatter Crown Shard at its source. When I return, dawn shall crown every hill." Aelia stepped forward, planting spear. "Free folk ride south to cull dead in mountains. We stand till last breath." Glover raised hammer. "And rebuild watch. Wall may lie shattered, but line endures." A cheer rose, echoing rafters. Outside, Aurora rippled again, but tinted now with warmer hues. Rose and amber mixing with green. as if sky itself slowly waking from long doze. In Obsidian Cavern, Crown Shard pulsed frantic, sensing dragons blazing. Its ice creatures knelt, crystalline talons tapping ground. Through steaming vents, it tasted tremors of earth, great veins of fire wove beneath seas. It sought way to freeze them. It glimpsed black-blue egg across leagues, half connected by stolen life thread. A plan formed: if it incubated egg in void frost, it would hatch mirror to Brannon's flame. Shadow Drake breathing cold beyond mortal measure. Shard pulsed once, thrice. Crystalline beasts rose, climbing tunnels toward surface. They reached shoreline where fog pooled thick. Their ice shaped into hulls around them. Masts sprouted jagged. A fleet of crystal dread salted with undead sailors marched onto decks. At prow of flagship stood nascent figure carved in ice, torso twisting serpent-like, future rider of Frost Dragon. Sails of hoarfrost billowed from no wind, catching currents of magic. The fleet glided west across unknown sea, heading toward realm of men. Night's second wave had begun. North's horizon glowed pale as sun dwindled behind ice haze. Brannon watched from tower, Virus perched like gargoyle beside. He felt warmth of dragonkin seep into marrow, reminding him breath yet steamed because he lived. He whispered to sky, honoring ghosts. Harlan, Lessa, Theomar, thousands unnamed. Then he turned southeast toward distant seas. Ready sails. Dawnfire rides. Virus bugled, beating wings. Miraxes answered from yard below. Snowflakes drifted, yet lighter, dancing rather than crushing. For first time in hearts, winter felt not infinite, but challenge. And men rose to meet it,